Good evening. Welcome back to 630 Point of View. Tonight in the Hot Box, Representative Kim Koppelman. Kim, thanks for being in the Hot Box.
Good to be with you, Chris.
You had a press conference today talking about new legislative proposals to help mitigate DUIs here in North Dakota. We are the #1 state in America right now with DUI-related fatalities and car accidents. This is not a new problem. You've been in the House for 18 years. Why pick up the Stop DUI flag now?
You know, I think that's a great question, and I think it's because the times are changing. I think people are coming to the conclusion in North Dakota that it's time to do something. We need to get serious. It's not just a law change, though. We need a cultural change. We need people to understand, everybody across our state to understand that it's unacceptable to drink and drive. Here's where I think our problem is. In North Dakota, if you get a DUI, far too often it's met with a wink and a nod or a, gee, I'm glad I didn't get caught, it wasn't me that got caught response, rather than a serious concern. But then when a drunk driver kills or maims somebody, we're all outraged. Well, those dots don't connect. We have to make drinking and driving unacceptable in North Dakota, and that takes a cultural change. Yes, we can make the laws tougher. We believe we're going to do that, but that's only one piece of the puzzle.
But I think there's people out there that try to make these things tougher. For example, Representative Ed Grucella. He's a former highway patrolman.
Sure.
He's come out with very tough legislation at different times. Did you vote for that legislation at the time?
I have no idea. We vote for about 1,000 bills every session. I've been in the legislature 18 years. My calculator doesn't go that high, so I'd have to look to tell you what I voted for or against on a specific bill. That's
so are you changing principles then because of what happened to the West Fargo family?
Not at all. We did make laws tougher on drunk driving in North Dakota several years ago. I voted for that change, the change that passed. I can't tell you how many bills I voted for or against that didn't pass. What I can tell you is what we did do. And this is, I believe, what we're going to do this time. You know, when I decided this summer that we needed legislation to maybe look at this and get tougher on our drunk driving laws, I decided to talk to the people that are on the front lines every day dealing with this issue. So I assembled a group of law enforcement officials. I talked to prosecutors, I talked to judges, I talked to the Attorney General, I talked to people across our state who are the ones that really know a lot more about this issue than I do. And this has been a collaborative approach. The governor's office has been involved as well.
So as you began to draft this new piece of legislation, did you consult Eddie Grucella, a former highway patrolman, when you drafted this?
No, I consulted current highway patrolman.
But he's also one of your members in the House. Why not?
Well, I didn't. You know, we have 98 members in the House. I didn't consult my members. Will be doing that during the legislative session. The people that I consulted are the people that deal with this issue every day in their work, so that I can find out what they're experiencing, what they think does work, what they think doesn't work, what they think might work, what they think might really change the problem. We had a room full of law enforcement people there this morning from all over the state, sheriffs, police officers, highway patrol people. The head of the North Dakota Highway Patrol, Jim Prochniak, has been very involved in this process. So, you know, you're bringing up somebody who might have a different bill. I haven't seen the bill. I don't know.
Well, I want to get to what you're...
I do serve with Representative Grucella, but that's
I do
not
want to get to what you're suggesting, but any particular reason why you wouldn't consult him?
No, no reason why I wouldn't consult anyone. We will during the session. We will have co-sponsors on this legislation. We'll be dealing with it in committees. We'll all have a chance to vote on it. You know, there's 98 people in the House. I didn't consult 97 people. This is something we put together.
All right, let's bring up
that
with what you're proposing, because you've talked about culture change. We'll see if this is going to have a significant impact. So here's basically what you're suggesting. You're saying, hey, first-time offense, minimum 10 days in jail, if obviously, as you said, that stands. You can see the numbers here. Is this strong enough? You're talking about a cultural change. I look at this and I go, $750 fine. People are going to go, you know what? Here's a check. I'm going to go drink again.
Well, you know, I think the problem is, where do you start? What's going to pass, number one, because a bill has to pass the legislature before any law change occurs, and what's going to make a difference out there in the real world. I hope this sends a message that we're serious about this. Right now, what happens is, and I've heard this repeatedly from the law enforcement folks I deal with, and by the way, I wasn't consulted on anyone else's bills either, just to let you know that I'm chairman of the Judiciary Committee, so that might be appropriate as well, because that's likely where all these bills will end up. But, you know, as I talked with law enforcement folks, one of the things they told me was, look, it's not necessarily, I mean, we can all beat our chest and say, I'm tougher than so-and-so, and look at me. That's not what this is about. This isn't about us. This is about the issue. The reality on the ground today is that under our law, people could be convicted and sentenced to 30 days in jail on their first offense. That's what the law says. Now, it's not happening. That has to do with a lot of other things, courts, sentencing, and so on. So what we're doing in this bill is we're saying, you know what? It's a 30-day sentence, yes, but now you must spend at least 4 days in jail that first time. And I'll tell you what, somebody getting arrested for a DUI, if they spend 4 days in the inside of a jail cell, it's going to send a message. They're going to think twice before they do this again, and the message is going to get out to all the people they know that this is a serious offense.
We'll see, and you talk about getting tough with this, and I think, again, compensation drives behavior. How do you begin to mitigate people making these decisions? Let's bring up Ed Gruchella's proposed legislation here, if you will. He's saying, hey, first offense, 30 days in jail, $5,000 fine, third offense within 10 years, 5 years in jail, $100,000 fine. To me, that's tough talk, and I think that's going to help people say, hey, I'm not going to get, a $5,000, $100,000 fine. Would you vote for a piece of legislation like that? Or why not strengthen yours and make it even tougher?
Well, throughout the legislative process, again, I point out, this is a collaborative effort. Law enforcement officials, prosecutors, judges, the governor's office, the attorney general's office, and this is not just about fines and penalties. It's also about what happens. What is our objective? Is our objective to punish people? Is our objective to scare people? Or is our objective to keep people who drink from driving? I think it's the latter. And if that's the case, this does that. Because in addition to the fines, in addition to the penalty, this requires participation in what's called the 24/7 program, which means that people have to go in and do a breath test when they're on probation for one of these offenses. A breath test twice a day, and they have to blow clean. No alcohol. If they don't, their bond is revoked, they're back in jail.
Thank you, Kim. One of the great things about the show is we get a chance to get all different kinds of points of view. Earlier in the day, I asked on our Facebook page to ask questions or comments for Representative Koppelman tonight. We've got those coming up, and as always, I want to invite you to join our conversation. Go to our website, 630pov.com, and if you're not big with computers, you can now use our POV hotline. Call that as well. Stay close. Much more coming up right here on 630 Point of View. Welcome back to 630 Point of View. Tonight in the Hot Box, Representative Kim Koppelman. Again, Kim, thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Again, one of the great things about this show is we get a chance to hear from you and get your point of view with our guests. And so I want to start with some of the Facebook comments that we got earlier today. I want to start with Christian Henderson. She had this question for you, Kim. Are the rules for those who chose to drink and drive only on the table, or will your law possibly impact establishments that serve have to face more regulation as well?
You know, the bill that as it's currently drafted, doesn't deal with serving. We talked about that. We talked about all these different issues. And we're not necessarily opposed to that, but at this point, we felt the more important thing, again, was to keep people from drinking and driving and get them off the road. People standing behind a bar don't know if you're driving, if you've got the keys in your pocket or not. And when I talk about a cultural change, that's what's really important. You know, this tragedy that occurred with this West Fargo family, and certainly it got my attention because I represent West Fargo, but it got the attention, I think, of everyone across the state. And it occurred to me that we could have the toughest laws in the nation, the toughest laws in the world on drunk driving. It probably would not have stopped that event. There are only three things I can think of that would have. One would have been, as you say, the bartender maybe saying, hey, you've had enough, I'm not going to serve you anymore. But second might have been someone in that bar saying, you know what, friend, you're not going to drive home. Grabbing those car keys and saying, I will give you a ride, I will call a family member, I'll do whatever's necessary, but I'm not going to let you get behind the wheel of that car. Third might have been, if that didn't work, calling law enforcement and saying there's somebody getting behind the wheel of a car that shouldn't be. Those are all cultural things that no law in the world is going to make happen. But we can together.
Want to get to another Facebook comment? Joanne Wendy Morgan. Yes, let's make bars responsible for people that drink at their establishment. People can't be responsible for themselves and need the government to step in and run their lives. You can't smoke in bars. You shouldn't be allowed to drink in them either. Hey, let's take away all of our rights, liberties, and responsibilities. Don't kid yourselves, people. This is what you're allowing to happen in our country. Harsher punishments for breaking the law make the first time they get caught the last time because the punishment is that costly. I think she brings up a couple good points. Kim, I wanted your comments. One is, here, we're giving up too many liberties right now. And again, is your suggestion strong enough to deter people from getting out there and drinking and driving?
Well, I think it is, because as I said, as a fact of the matter is, people don't go to jail for their first DUI right now. They will under this law. We're tripling the fine on the first offense. We're requiring that they go on this 24/7 program, which means not only that they can't drink and drive, but that they can't drink, period, until their probationary period is over, assuming they're on probation. You know, the two activities you talked about, drinking and driving, are not constitutional rights. They're privileged activities. You have to be a certain age to drink. You have to be licensed to drive. So those are already restricted activities, and we know that the combination of the two can be deadly. We as a state, we as a people, need to work together to stop this. And the law alone won't do that, but we as the people of North Dakota can.
We'll get to one more Facebook comment here. Rhonda says tougher laws need to be made to make people wake up. Hey, take them to an ER while they're sober of a drunk driving accident. Is that a possibility in your piece of legislation?
Well, it's not part of the legislation, but I think any of those suggestions are good. What I would like to see happen is when people commit their first DUI offense, not only does it hit them in the pocketbook, and by the way, insurance rates go up, all kinds of things happen already that are expensive when somebody has a DUI. So hitting people in the pocketbook isn't the only solution, although we're tripling it on the first and second offenses here. Secondly, I think people that have never seen the inside of a jail, being there, physically being there, when the rest of their life, they're law-abiding citizens, really will send a message to folks. If it's a slap on the wrist, it won't. So I think any of those things, while they're sitting there contemplating what they've done and contemplating the consequences if they stay on the path they're on, can be helpful.
Last Facebook comment for you. This is from Michelle. How about better city transportation? I believe we're obviously referring to Fargo. How about more buses running at night, more cab companies that pay flat rates so you don't have to wait outside in the cold at 2 a.m. for an hour to find a cab? I hear a lot of people talk about it. It's so long to wait for a cab in this town. They say, hey, you know what, forget about it. I'm just going to go jump in my car and drive. Any possibility of something like that happening? Well,
you know, those are all part of our free enterprise system, and maybe we need more cab companies. If the market can support that, I would certainly support it. There's nothing in this bill that forces the government to do that, nor do I think the government ought to be in the taxi business. But she makes a good point. In our urban areas, certainly you can call a cab, you can take a bus maybe or something. There are other modes of transportation. But North Dakota is a diverse state. If you're out in a small town or a rural community, that's particularly where we're going to need to depend on each other. And our friends and neighbors are going to have to be the ones offering those rides.
And that's where the culture change comes in. Kim, thanks for being in Hot Box. Really appreciate it. Stay close. We got a lot more coming up. We're going to talk about some great emails received from you last night about gun control laws. We'll get to that and much more. And as always, I'd like to have you join our conversation by going to 630pov.com. Stay close. We'll be right back.